Hey y'all, welcome back to another very short episode of Bitch Chronicles. I had a couple topics picked out today of what I wanted to talk about. However, given the circumstances of the weather, I just want to talk about Illinois weather because it's stupid. So today it's probably about 60 degrees out right now. A little bit windy, but it's fine. Tomorrow is supposed to be 62. And wind gusts of up to like 60 miles an hour. And then the next day it's supposed to be 39. Like, I just want it to stay, like, I'd be happy if the weather just stayed in the 50s or above at this point. That's like a heat wave for us Illinoisans this time of year, But like, we usually don't get consistent weather, consistent warm/hot weather until like June. And then we don't ever really have a spring. We don't ever really have a fall. It just goes from one extreme to the other. It goes from like super chilly to fucking hot, for lack of a better word there. So my mom and I actually were talking about this a couple days ago, was the tornado that we had in December. It was December 1st when we had the tornado. And the whole time that I was little, no, before I was little, I'm almost 31, we never had a tornado that actually touched down in town and gave significant damage. Like, my mom said whenever she was a little kid that they had, a couple tornadoes, I think, that like tore off the back of their porch because we lived out in the country, like not out in the country, but like out of city limits, basically, I guess, in this little town called Hewittville, which was right off Taylorville. And so we both grew up in the same home, and there was a couple that kind of through railroad, what they call railroad ties, I think, like around, because we lived really close to the railroad tracks and stuff, but it was never like an actual like destroy shit tornado. But December 1st we actually had one, and the day before the tornado it was probably low 40s. The day of the tornado, it was like 65 degrees. And then the day after the tornado, it was like 30 fucking degrees. 30 degrees. Illinois weather is so dumb. But anyway, so the tornado was super crazy. It destroyed a lot of homes. Like, I think they rated it as an F4 or an EF4. Those are obviously the same thing, but I think they call it something different now. And I never was able to, I never saw firsthand destruction of what a tornado could actually do until then. Because the only ones I've seen, have been like on the news or like watching on YouTube or something like that, because natural disasters fascinate me, just of like the sheer destruction that one small thing can do, like earthquakes and hurricanes. It's insane to me what they can do. So like, I'll watch a video and then like another video will be playing, and I could spend hours just watching it, not even realize it. But so anyway, so the tornado, it was super crazy. It there's Route 48, a state highway. The tornado actually traveled basically up that highway. It hit each town from like Litchfield, and it just traveled up, but nobody really thinks it's ever going to happen until it actually does, because like we have so many warnings all the time, because like the circumstances are good for it. But we live in a very rural area where if we do have a tornado, it usually hits like out in the country somewhere where it doesn't really do anything, so nobody was like, everybody was like, no, it's not going to hit us, but of course that's whenever it happens, is whenever you least expect it, especially in fucking December. It's December, people have Christmas trees and shit up at this point. But anyways, state highways here, and then on the opposite side, in this valley, you can actually see where the tornado actually touched down, because all the trees are snapped in half. Like you can see the exact path of where it touched down, cross the highway, which they said was really weird because of it touching down in like a valley, you know, because I mean it's, you know, it's deep in there, and then you have to go up, you know, probably 10 foot, and then there's the highway, and then across the highway or, you know, is a town. But you can see exactly where it touched down from the trees being snapped, and then it just destroyed this little town that's off of my town. Like, it was where I grew up. It's called Hewettville. And my aunt actually had a trailer. She lived in a trailer out there, and they had, you know, a bunch of animals and stuff. And she had a trailer and a barn, and, like, you know, obviously fence posts and all that stuff because she had animals. And when the sirens went off a second time, which usually never happens. Usually it goes off once to warn people, and that's pretty much it. At least in my town, that's what happens. Like, they do it once, and then it's basically up to you to keep an eye on the weather. Because whenever I lived in Missouri, they had it was Lake Ozark when I lived in, and they had a siren that would go off, but it would actually say over like the loudspeaker or whatever, like what it was, if it was a thunderstorm warning, or they would give you like an all clear and stuff. So here it's like they go off once, you don't know what it's for. I mean, it's usually because of a tornado warning, but I think sometimes, honestly, I think it's for a thunderstorm warning too. Or they have like the favorable conditions for a tornado or whatever. So I think that's what it is too. But nobody really knows. You kind of just have to, you know, watch the Weather Channel. Anyways, but so the second time that the alarm went off was minutes, very like maybe 2 minutes at the most before the tornado hit. So my aunt walked outside of her trailer to see what was going on, like if she could see anything, whatever. And the tornado actually picked her up and tossed her, I would say, half mile to a mile over to a water tower. Like, just rolled her across the fields. I mean, because she had nothing but field behind her and stuff. And I mean, she broke some ribs, cracked her back, broke her leg. She had a lot of other injuries, obviously. I don't even know how that woman survived, because she's baby tiny, you know. She's like, you know, 5'2", maybe 5'3", maybe 90 pounds. She's this tiny little woman, you know. Destroyed her trailer. We could never find where her trailer was. Half the barn was still there. They had to end up putting a horse down because it got trapped in the barn, because she didn't have, I'm assuming she doesn't remember a whole lot. She remembers walking outside and she remembers waking up. But I assume that she walked outside to see what was going on and to go let the horses run out to pasture, you know, so they could run away, whatever. But yeah, they had to end up putting the oldest horse down. But that was, so we could never find her trailer. She was in the hospital for probably a week or two. And then there was another person who broke their back in the same area of that, because the tornado hit the trailer and then just kind of kept moving. There were several houses that were completely moved off the foundation, several houses that were just completely destroyed. It was an awful sight, you know, because like I said, that's where we grew up. That's where I spent my childhood, you know, going around the block and riding, you know, because back in my childhood time, you know, we didn't have phones and stuff like that. I think maybe we got internet when I was maybe like in high school, you know, but it was like the dial-up internet, you know, and we could never stand off of that very long because, you know, someone would have to use the phone or whatever. But so we were always outside playing around with all the neighborhood kids and exploring this and that and the other. So that's where, you know, we spent a lot of time. And there was a lot of kids in the neighborhood too whenever I was younger. So just going around and just seeing how all the places we used to hang out with or hang out at, and there's just not there. It's so weird, you know, because stuff like that, like we have tornado warnings all the time in the spring and summer, sometimes the fall. But nobody ever thinks it's gonna hit, you know, like it's just like tornado sirens are like people who cry wolf, because that happens all the time and you're just like, nothing's gonna happen, and then it happens, and then you're not prepared for it. I was at home with my kids, and my husband was at work, and thank God we didn't get any damage out here. We're kind of a little on the outskirts of town a little bit. But even not only in Hewittville did it hit, but it also hit middle of downtown. Um, it was awful. It was awful. I have a video of the aftermath the day after that it happened that I'm going to post. And then, there were so many people who worked so hard for days afterwards to at least get the trees and stuff cleaned up. And, and the houses, like there's several houses that aren't even there anymore that had to bulldoze them because they were not salvageable at all. So, but I'm going to go out there probably in the next day or so, whenever it actually is warm enough to where I don't have to try to catch my breath in the wind, because it's supposed to be really windy the next couple days and cold, of course, because it's supposed to go back down to cold. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to post that video. And then I also have videos of the actual tornado. So I'm going to post all those, but just to look at it, just to look at your childhood home and your cousin's house that you used to go and like hang out with all the time and go and ride the horses and everything. It's so crazy to go and see where it's just completely leveled. Both my mom and my childhood home, actually it was still standing, but there was a lot of damage because of the trees. There was maybe a handful of trees that were still standing out there, and there was so many trees out there. It was just and they were just very mature trees, so these huge oak trees and just huge, I don't really know the different kinds of trees, but I know an oak tree, and there's hardly any standing out there anymore. I think once it gets warmer, I think that everybody's gonna go out there and just like plant some more trees. I mean, obviously I know it's gonna take a lot of decades for them to be mature trees again, but any little thing will help at this point. But it's crazy. And then it's so cold out that, they can't really do anything out there because the ground's frozen, or it's just too cold for me to want to go out there to do anything. They put new, my mom and I drove out there, I think it was last week, and they put new telephone poles up because they had all been ripped down. And it's crazy. It's crazy. There's a lot of damage on that side of town, and also, like I said, through the middle of town. There's one street where you can drive. There's one or two streets in town you drive on, and all you see are blue tarps on the roof from shingles missing, or like roofs being ripped off, and stuff like that. It's super, super crazy. So I will post that video, and I'll link it below. And then, like I said, whenever Mother Nature gets her head out of her fucking asshole and decides to make the weather warm to where I'm not freezing cold, then I'm gonna go to where we had a lot of the damage and videotape that, so you can kind of see like the day after it happened and then like now. And like I said, and then there were two videos of the actual tornado when it was on the ground. There was one, someone was taking like in the middle of town, well, not really the middle, but like in the actual town, you could see it. And then there was one, someone was out in the country videotaping it, and you could see it, and it was monstrous. They rated it as an F4. So it was freaking huge. So I will probably post another video, probably talking again about the tornado with my mom. My mom was actually in the middle of it. I was lucky enough to where me and the kids were kind of, we live kind of on the outskirts of town a little bit. So I heard it coming because I very conscious of the weather. So I had the window open because it was dark out, you couldn't see anything, and it was traveling up 48. And I mean, I'm looking at my window in my living room right now, and I can see Route 48. So that's what made me nervous, was, because I have all my kids. I'm just like, oh my God. But so I had the window open and I could hear it. I heard when it came, and that's when we ran down to the basement. My mom was actually in the middle of when it actually hit. So She says that she has nightmares about it sometimes, and like when a thunderstorm hits or something. And I'm sure there's a lot of kids, like little younger kids, who actually probably do too. I'm thankful that my kids won't have to experience that, at least not this time, and hopefully not ever. But there are a lot of kids who have a lot of, a lot of PTSD from it. I mean, I can only imagine just the sounds and of everything crashing around and trees, and because there were so many trees down and windows blown out of houses and roofs being torn off. It was horrible. It was obviously not very good. So, but I will post another video with my mom of that so she can tell, her experience. And another thing was we have our tornado sirens tested the first Tuesday of every month. Well, December 1st, I think it may have fallen on a Saturday, and they were supposed to stop the tornado sirens from testing on the following Tuesday because it was the first Tuesday of the month, and they didn't. And so there was a lot of people who were freaked out about that because, I mean, it was a jury day. I mean, it was cold outside, but I mean, just having gone through a traumatic experience, I can only imagine how the kids were in school, because they go off in the morning the first Tuesday of every month. So, but they never stopped them. I don't know why they didn't, but it was crazy. So now, it's going to take a while for people to get over it, but every time it thunderstorms or it goes from like cold to really warm in a day, people freak out because everybody, did the whole, tornado sirens are crying wolf, and so no one prepared. I'm not saying no one, but there was probably a lot of people who didn't prepare because, it never happens to us, and then it finally did. So now, it only takes that one time. So anyways, I'll go ahead and I'll link the video below in the comments. Make sure you like and subscribe. Ask me any questions you have, and I will see you guys soon. Bye.